What is up, guys? Dish won't kill my vibe. This is part 4 of those 75 NBA takes I promised you before tip-off, okay? Now, by the time this gets posted, I think tip-off might have already been happening or happened the night before. And I apologize. I promised you 75 takes. These are numbers 46 through 60, okay? This is the 4th part. It's quick maths. But let's get right into it, okay? Because I got some more takes I want to talk about, and these are good. These are really good. If the All-Star game is still in Cleveland like they had scheduled, LeBron James is going to walk away as the NBA All-Star MVP. It's the most LeBron thing I can think of, okay? Like, he probably would want to enter the three-point contest that weekend too, just for the hell of it, because he knows everybody wanted to see him in a dunk contest, and he's just an asshole like that. So, yeah, he's going to probably put on a show and remind Cleveland that he was the king of Cleveland for a decade and stuff, you know? So, yeah, LeBron James is going to win All-Star MVP. And that's actually a little bit of a bold prediction because he doesn't really try anymore at these All-Star games. He tries to let these young guys take over, but I feel like in Cleveland, he wants to show out and get that trophy. So Paul George is going to be the subject of a lot of trade rumors. I think I've already mentioned that the Clippers are going to struggle this year. I think they have a lot of question marks, and if they can prove me wrong, so be it. And if they do, Paul George is probably going to be a big reason why. But let's just say, for worst case scenario, I think they struggle and they start to think that maybe Paul George is the guy that they have to get rid of to get some help for Kawhi Leonard, because, you know, Kawhi might be looking out the door and saying, hey, maybe I need to go somewhere else too. And Paul George isn't, like, it's not fair to scapegoat him because I think he is a good player and I think he is a good Robin to Kawhi's Batman. You know, but I think if you're going to make any trade that's of value, Paul George is the guy. So it'll be interesting to see, but I ultimately think he's not going to get traded, though. I just want to be clear. I think they're going to ride it out. The offseason will be a different story, though. One of my favorite centers, DeMarcus Cousins. Man, this guy was such a beast, but he is still a free agent to this day. I don't think any team has given him a chance and has brought him into training camp or anything. And that might not be bad, but I think he is going to get signed at some point this year to a Eastern Conference team that really needs more size and depth. I'm not going to say Brooklyn, but that could be a really strong possibility depending on the situation. I actually think I could see him on like a team like Atlanta, in all honesty. Like, I know they have Clint Capella, they have John Collins, and they might have a couple of other bigs, but I mean, that's kind of like a interesting fit, and I'm not expecting a lot from DeMarcus Cousins. I think, in all honesty, he might be the 3rd string center on a lot of teams, but if he can give you some solid 15 minutes, maybe even 20 on occasional nights, and he's looking okay, I think he's still giving you like maybe 10.6 rebounds here or there, and I think he has something to prove. So if he doesn't get signed this year, I think, unfortunately, you might see the last of DeMarcus Cousins in the NBA. That's just kind of how things work out with people with his type of injuries. OKC finally decides that enough is enough, and they start to sell off some of these draft picks that they have and acquire legitimate talent that actually can grow with this team. And I know OKC has purposely tanked and accumulated a bunch of assets, and they're just there to absorb large contracts and buy them out, and then whatever. They're still paying Kemba Walker like $26 million for the next 2 years. Every year, they're paying like $50 million because they bought him out, and, you know, that's just eating up the cap space because everybody else, like, nobody else is making more than $10 million on a roster. For comparison, I think like Seth Curry is making like $9 million, and he's not even in the top 5 on the Sixers, salary cap. So I think OKC starts to sell off some of their draft picks and maybe get a player in return. And they really need to go after like teams that have good players, like a rookie or a young player that you can keep, and go after them and see if you can build them with the future and keep them with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Lou Dort and Josh Giddey. I think a lot of those pieces are there, and then you just got to add more talent. So they start doing that with draft picks and absorbing large contracts. So, yes, OKC finally takes away and starts selling off some, maybe like 5 draft picks at the most, to get some talent to help. The rookie leader in assists is actually going to be your 6'9" power forward from Toronto, Scottie Barnes. I think he's pretty much like if Ben Simmons, if he didn't exist, Ben Simmons wouldn't be the guy that Toronto really wanted, but Scottie Barnes was available, and he's got similar height, he's got long arms, and I think his passing is very underrated. So he's going to be with the starting lineup, whether that's Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam. You just put him in there, and he's going to get a lot of repetition, and especially if Toronto decides to sell off some of their players and get some more draft capital, or try to find another star to replace, because maybe Siakam isn't that guy. Scottie Barnes is going to be one of those players that like fills up the stat sheet. Like maybe he might only get like 5-10 points, whatever, but he'll get like 6 rebounds, 7 assists, and I think he's going to lead the rookies in assists. And that's pretty impressive, because I think Jalen Suggs and Josh Giddey are going to be 2 guys that get you like over 5 assists in a game too. So, and also Cade Cunningham is a great playmaker. So it's gonna be a fun draft class, and yeah, Scottie Barnes is your guy that's gonna capture a lot of attention. So the DeAndre Ayton situation in Phoenix is very interesting. The #1 overall pick in 2018 does not have a contract extension. That doesn't really happen for a guy like that, who's productive, and right now we're in a stalemate. And I think this is a situation where DeAndre Ayton just says, "See you later, Phoenix," and I think he's going to want to go somewhere else. And I think there's opportunity for him. So, and I don't know. I think Phoenix wants to keep him, but they won't pay him. But there will be a team that wants to pay him maybe $25-30 million a year for a young guy who can crash the board and defend and finish on alley-oops. Like, in my mind, I think DeAndre Ayton and Charlotte makes the most sense. Like, LaMelo Ball needs a center that can catch alley-oops and defend the paint and grow with for the next 5-6 years in Charlotte. And DeAndre Ayton is that type of dude. Like, I think it's going to be amazing. Now, Phoenix probably thinks that we want to keep you, and I think we see a championship potential with you on the team, but we can't pay you that money. We're just so stingy. That's historically been Phoenix's problem. They just don't pay their players as much as they should. So it's a very interesting situation, and I can't wait to see how it actually transpires. But I mean, this is going to be a messy situation, I think. So Jayson Tatum averages a career high in points. Maybe he's up from his 26 points to 27 points per game. But I also think he's going to average a career high in assists. I think he's going to lead the Celtics in assists. He could get over 5 a game, maybe close to 6 per game, and he's going to be a well-rounded player. He's finally going to make an all-NBA team, albeit maybe an all-NBA second or third team. But yeah, I think Jayson Tatum is going to have a lot to prove this year, and one of those areas that he's going to prove in is his playmaking. So career highs in assists, points, and he's going to keep Boston in it like this year. I don't have a lot of high hopes for Boston, but they're going to be a tough out. So, let's see what Jayson Tatum does. This is the last Boston thing I'm going to mention, because I'm showing way too much love as a Sixer fan for Boston. But I think the highest scoring tandem, this is going to be bold, because I know everybody's going to say James Harden and Kevin Durant, the highest scoring tandem, or maybe Tobias Harris and Joel Embiid. Maybe they combine to average almost 50 a game. I think Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown are going to be the highest scoring tandem in the league. This is actually a pretty interesting question, because you have CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard, who could probably get you over 50. And maybe I'm just a little too high on Jaylen Brown, but I think he's the guy who can also get you like 24, 25 a game. And then you have Jayson Tatum getting you 27 to 30 a game too. I think the recipe, they're going to call on those two numbers so much this year for Boston that they have to. If you're going to add up any of the 2 highest scoring tandems, it's going to be these 2. LeBron and AD, or LeBron and Russell, I think that's a possibility, but I think they all kind of like take a little bit of a step down in their scoring. And all 3 of those guys will average over 20, but I don't think they'll have enough to be considered for just a 1-2 punch that's up there in the league. So one of my favorite players in the NBA, Minnesota's draft pick, Anthony Edwards. He's such a he's an enigma, man. He's really talented as a scorer, and I think nobody's doubting that. He's hyper athletic. He had some of the best dunks, and he is an absolute gem of quotes after post-game interviews and everything. Like, just look it up. He's probably the funniest guy in the NBA. I absolutely love Anthony Edwards, and I think he has so much potential. One of his biggest knocks has been defense, though, and with his talent, people thought he could do a lot more on defense. I think this year you're going to see a lot more from him on the defensive end. Over a steal, over a block. That's my prediction for him on the defensive end. I think Anthony Edwards starts to round out his game. Maybe he takes a scoring bump, maybe 22, 23 a game, averages a little bit more rebounds, but I think he makes a huge difference on the defensive end of the things, and I think that's going to be good for Minnesota and them staying competitive, you know, in the Wild Wild West. Former Sixer Markelle Fultz, #1 overall pick, has had a tough career, setbacks galore, forgot how to shoot somehow, and he had a resurrection in Orlando, but then he got injured again, tore his ACL. I think the Orlando experiment with Markelle Fultz is going to be over. I think he's going to be traded once again, and that's not a knock on him. I think he'll come back and try to play at a high level, and he would be in a good position, but they drafted Jalen Suggs, and they also had a promising rookie from Cole Anthony who had a really good season. I mean, yeah, you could keep all three of those guards, but there's not going to be enough minutes. You could kind of play both of them together, but all three of those guys are just primary ball handlers, and I mean, maybe Jalen Suggs is the best one that plays off the ball as far as a shooter, and maybe you can work Jalen Suggs and Markelle Fultz in a perfect world, but I think they eventually end up trading Markelle Fultz while he has some value. So, I mean, hopefully, that's what I'm kind of hoping for. A team that can afford to take the chance on Markelle will definitely do it. Like, it's not the end of the road for Markelle. Memphis, I talked a lot about Memphis and them being a surprise, and I gave Ja Morant a lot of praises. I think he's going to have a great season coming up, but he needs help. And yeah, it would be nice if Jaren Jackson Jr. was that guy. But I actually think Dillon Brooks is going to be a really good backcourt mate for Ja Morant, and he actually takes the next step and averages over 20 a game. Dillon Brooks did have a really good series against Utah in the playoffs, and I think he averaged like maybe 25 or over 25 a game, and he's just really 6'7", can shoot the ball. The only issue is consistency, and he's really streaky. So, but I think Dillon Brooks is going to put it together this year. I think he's poised to have a really good season and help out Ja Morant. So don't be surprised if he averages over 20 a game. Another under-the-radar player, and I haven't really talked too much about Indiana because they are a confusing team, but Malcolm Brogdon last year had a really good season. 21 points per game, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. I mean, he was a really solid contributor to the Indiana Pacers, and if he's still on that team, I think he's going to have a great season. I think he's actually going to average over 25 a game. Now, I don't know if Indiana's going to win a lot of games, but I think they're going to get a lot of production from Malcolm Brogdon, and he just keeps getting better every season. I actually think he's one of the most underrated guards in the NBA. He can play the 1 or the 2 pretty effectively, and his game isn't really flashy or anything like that. He's not going to posterize everybody or, you know, like shoot lights out, but he's a good shooter, and he plays kind of like that old man type of game, just really smart. To be honest, it's like if Tim Duncan was a shooting guard. I think Malcolm Brogdon will be that guy. Just really fundamental. But yeah, I expect a lot of good things from Malcolm Brogdon. Continue to improve and, you know, maybe average 25 a game or more than that. So there will be a lot of chatter about Steve Nash and being the coach of Brooklyn, and I think they're going to struggle, and that might not be his fault, but I think people are going to start to really put the pressure on Steve Nash and maybe question his rotations and maybe wonder why they aren't dominating the East like they were, even with James Harden and Kevin Durant, 2 top 10 players, you know, in the NBA. You know, I know they have their injuries recently, but I think people are going to start worrying about Steve Nash's ability to coach. And he's not going to get fired, but he's definitely going to be on the hot seat at the end of this season if they can't get to the finals. That's not a bold prediction. Everybody's predicting them to get to the finals or even win the finals. I think the NBA GM said that like 72% of them think the Nets are going to win the finals this year. So yeah, the expectations are sky high for the Nets. Last year, only 2 players averaged more than 30 points per game. This year, I'm going to say 5 players average more than 30 points per game. And this isn't something that's bold. It's because a lot of players could do this, but it's just that they play more team-oriented basketball where everybody gets a little bit of the touches. I just think that for, you know, given the situations with Luka Doncic, Damian Lillard, Brad Beal, Zion, and either Devin Booker, if you know, I think those are the 5 guys that I really think are in the best position to score 30 points or more every single night. And I think those are going to be the 5 guys that average more than 30 this season. I really wanted to put Donovan Mitchell in this category as well because I think he is going to prove that he has a lot more to his game and he's going to take that next step. But Utah just plays such team-oriented basketball that he's not going to get a chance to probably top that 30-point per game mark. So everybody else, I think they fairly should. Yeah, for sure. Lonzo Ball, big baller brand OG, number 1. Lonzo Ball will be top 5 in assists and steals. He's going to be one of the most true point guards this season, and he's going to have a really good bounce back season. I know last year he really improved himself as a shooter, became respectable at the free throw line, was a respectable 3-point shooter, but his assist numbers weren't so great, and I think that had more to do with the system in place in New Orleans. But this year, with Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola Vucevic, I think he's going to be able to rack up those assist numbers like crazy, and I wouldn't be surprised, you know, like he's going to be a great defensive player too. So like this, he has to be the guy that sets the tone defensively for Chicago, and Chicago wants to do as good as I think they're going to do. They're going to have to play a strong defensive game, and that's going to be led by a player like Lonzo Ball. He's got to be the tone setter on the defensive end, push the ball and get everybody else the buckets. I can actually see his scoring dipping a little bit, like maybe under 14 a game. But yeah, Lonzo Ball is going to have a great season. He's going to be a true point guard. So that's it. 60 takes so far, man. 60 takes down, 15 left to go. Until next time for the last part. Peace.